Hi, in this video, we're going to look at how we go about factorizing exponential expressions. Now, in previous sections, we have learned that in order to factorize an expression, we need to remove a common factor from every term. So how do we tackle a question that looks like this? 2 to the power of n plus 2 plus 2 to the power of n. We have an exponent of n plus 2 and an exponent of n. These terms are not the same, so how do we factorize? The third rule of exponents tells us that when multiplying terms with exponents, we can add the exponents together. Here we have 2 to the power of n multiplied by 2 squared. The bases are the same, so we can say n plus 2, and we get 2 to the power of n plus 2. Now, this idea also works the other way around, meaning that we can split the exponents. So if we have 3 to the power of n plus 4, we can split it into 3 to the power of n multiplied by 3 to the power of 4. And we're going to use this idea to factorize this equation down here. So instead of 2 to the power of n plus 2, I'm going to say 2 to the power of n multiplied by 2 to the power of 2. Let's put this into a bracket, and then we add our 2 to the power of n. Remember that when you're multiplying values together, they become one term. So here's one term, and here's one term. Both of these terms have a common factor of 2 to the power of n. So let's take this out, and we've got 2 to the power of n. Open our brackets. Remember, when you are removing a factor, you're dividing. So in this case, we are left with 2 squared. 2 to the power of n divided by 2 to the power of n leaves us with 1. And now we can simplify. Outside of the bracket, we have 2 to the power of n. Open our bracket. 2 squared is 4. And we're adding 1. We get 2 to the power of n multiplied by 4 plus 1, which is 5. Please remember that when you have a term with a variable exponent, like n, you cannot multiply it by any other terms unless they have the same variable as well. So in this case, this is our final answer. Let's make some space and look at another example. 3 to the power of n plus 2 plus 3 to the power of n plus 1. Let's start by splitting up our exponents. And we're going to have 3 to the power of n multiplied by 3 to the power of 2. Let's put this into a bracket, plus 3 to the power of n. Then we have plus 1, so we multiply by 3 to the power of 1. Now we have two separate terms, both of which have got 3 to the power of n as a factor. So let's take this out, and we have 3 to the power of n, open bracket, and we're left with 3 squared plus 3. Now we can simplify the values within the bracket. So we have 3 to the n, open bracket, 3 squared is 9, 3 to the power of 1 is simply 3, so we say plus 3. Now we can add these values, and we have 3 to the power of n, 9 plus 3 is 12, and this is our final answer. Let's do another one. 4 multiplied by 3 to the power of 2n plus 1 minus 3 to the power of 2n. Let's split up these exponents over here. So in our first bracket, we're going to have 4 multiplied by 3 to the power of 2n multiplied by 3 to the power of 1. Then we're going to minus, so we say minus 3 to the power of 2n. Now we have 3 to the power of 2n over here and 3 to the power of 2n over here. So let's take it out as a common factor. So 3 to the power of 2n. Let's open a big bracket. We're left with 4 multiplied by 3. So I'm going to say 4 multiplied by 3 to the power of 1, which is simply 3, minus 3 to the power of 2n divided by 3 to the power of 2n leaves us with 1. Let's close our bracket. Now we can simplify the values inside these brackets. So we have 3 to the power of 2n outside. Open the bracket. 4 multiplied by 3 is 12. And then we minus 1. Close the bracket. We have 3 to the power of 2n. 12 minus 1 is 11. And this is our final answer. Let's do one more example. Remember that your operations determine your terms. So here's one term, and there's one term. Let's start with our first term. Let's put into a bracket. We have 3 multiplied by 2 to the power of x plus 1. So let's split our exponents. We have 2 to the power of x multiplied by 2 to the power of 1. Let's close the bracket. We have a plus sign. Put plus sign over here. Open our second bracket. 5 multiplied by 2 to the power of x. Now we have 2 to the power of x in this term and again in this term. We can take it out as a common factor. So I have 2 to the power of x. I'm going to open a big square bracket. Then I'm left with 3 multiplied by 2. You can say 3 multiplied by 2. Put into a smaller bracket. Plus, we are removing 2 to the power of x as a common factor, so we're left with 5. Now we can simplify these values. We have 2 to the power of x outside of our brackets. 3 multiplied by 2 is 6. And then we plus 5. Let's add these terms together. And we're going to get 2 to the power of x. Open brackets. 6 plus 5 is 11. And we have now completed this example. Please look at some exercises on this section before continuing with these videos.